Welcome to i-TUTOR Economics NCERT series. Today we are going to deal with Chapter 10, Environmental Economics. So what is called environmental economics? It is the branch of economics that studies how human economic activities interact with the natural environment. Okay, that is, it is the branch of economics that studies how economic activities of humans interact with the natural environment. So think of it like this. The economy needs the environment for raw materials, then like water, minerals and forest. So the environment gets affected by the economy through pollution, waste and resource extraction. So both are interdependent. Okay. Environmental economics tries to answer an important question. How can we use natural resources efficiently without damaging the environment? What this environmental economics studies? Environmental economics looks at issues such as conservation and sustainable use of natural resources, their waste management, pollution control, recycling, valuation of environmental goods like clean air, forest, rivers, etc. Why is environmental economics important? All resources, whether natural, human or financial, are limited. So the government must design policies that give maximum benefit at minimal cost. And what are the key objectives of environmental economics? The key objective is to find policies or tools that help the market use natural resources efficiently without waste and without harming the environment. So in short, environmental economics teaches how to balance economic growth with environmental protection. Hope you understand. Now, meaning of environment. The word environment comes from the French word environia, which means to surround. Okay, so in simple words, environment means everything that surrounds us. And what is the formal meaning? Environment refers to all the conditions, circumstances and influences that surround and affect a single organism like a human, animal or plant, or a group of organisms like community or ecosystem. And what is the scientific meaning? Environment is the combination of several factors that determine how a living organism looks, grow, behave and survive. So these factors are physical factors like air, water, sunlight, climate, soil, etc. or chemical factors like nutrients, minerals, gases, chemicals in water or air, and biotic factors like other living beings like plants, animals and microorganisms. So environment is the combination of several factors that determines how a living organism looks, grow, behave and survive. And these factors are physical factors, chemical factors and biotic factors. All these together act on the organism or an ecological community and shape its form, function and survival. Now, meaning of environmental economics. Okay, this is environmental economics. Okay. Environmental economics is a branch of economics that recognizes the value of both environment and economic activity and help us make decisions by considering both these values together. And it aims to balance economic development with environmental protection. Okay, this means that whenever we produce goods or use resources, we also think about the environmental cost and benefit involved. For example, or in simple words, we can say environmental economics studies how environmental issues such as pollution, climate change, deforestation or waste management affect the economy and how economic policies can help to solve these problems. And it includes theoretical studies like ideas, models, concepts and also empirical studies like real data and real world analysis. To understand the economic impact of national and local environmental policies across the world, we used to study it through theoretical and empirical studies. Now, ecosystem. An ecosystem is a community where living things and non-living things interact with each other. It includes living things like biotic components like plants, animals and organisms, then microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, etc., and also non-living things or abiotic components like sun, soil, climate, atmosphere, and so on. And all these components interact continuously. Okay. For example, plants use sunlight, water, and soil and nutrients to grow. Animals eat plants or other animals. Microorganisms decompose dead plants and animals and return nutrients to the soil. Now, let me ask you something. Why ecosystems are important? Ecosystems form the foundation of the biosphere, which means they keep the entire earth healthy. If ecosystems are damaged, the balance of the whole earth systems gets affected. In short, an ecosystem is a natural unit where life exists, interacts, and depends on both living and non-living factors. Okay. Linkages between economy and the environment. Human life is not separate from nature. We depend on the environment for everything: air, water, food, minerals, energy, land, etc. While our economic activities affect the environment in return. So, economy and environment are interconnected like two sides of the same coin. Why do we say they are interconnected? Because humans use environmental resources. Every economic activity, whether production, consumption, and investment, they needs inputs like water, forests, minerals, land, and energy. And without these, no economy can function. Then, environment absorbs the waste produced by the economy, right? After production and consumption, the economy releases smoke, plastic, sewage, industrial waste, heat, chemicals, and so on. And all these go back to the environment. So the environment is both source of resources and sink of waste. Okay. And there is a theory model called material balance model by Alan Nees and R.V. Iris. This model explains the relationship in a scientific way. What does it say? The economy takes materials from the environment. These materials are used in the production and consumption, and after use they return to the environment as waste. So input is equal to output because of the law of conservation of matter. In simple words, we can say that whatever we take from the nature eventually go back to the nature, either as goods or as waste. So how to understand this model? I will tell you a simple flow. Environment provides raw materials and energy, and that goes to the economy, and the economy produces goods and services, and they are bought by the people, and after consumption there is waste, and that waste returns to the environment. So this is a complete cycle. And why this linkage is important? Because overuse of resources leads to scarcity. Too much of waste leads to pollution, and pollution will affect our health and also affect the climate. Then health issues leads to economic loss, and climate change leads to damage to agriculture, industry, and living conditions. So a healthy environment is necessary for a healthy economy. Now look at this graph, this figure 10.1. In this graph we can see, in the x-axis we can see the size of GDP, that is economic activity. In y-axis we can see the environmental quality. And abatement cost, right of y-axis we can see the abatement cost, that means cost to reduce pollution. And inside the graph you can see two lines, this B and that is B line, that is downward sloping line, and this line, that is an upward sloping line, and this meted point E. So let's understand them one by one. This AE point, this AE graph, this one, this downward sloping one, this means environmental quality decreases as GDP increases. This line slopes downward. It shows that when economic activity is low, that is when GDP is low, environmental quality is high because pollution is low. And as GDP increases, more factories, more vehicles, and power plants. As GDP increases, due to this, environmental quality goes down. So this line represents environmental degradation. Which line? This line. Okay. And what about this EB line? This line. So this is abatement cost increases as GDP increases. This line shows abatement cost increases as GDP increases. And this line slope upwards. It shows that when GDP is low, pollution is also low. Low abatement cost. And when GDP grows and pollution rises, government and industries must spend more money to control pollution, install filters, treat wastewater and manage solid waste. So abatement, that is cleaning, become more expensive with higher GDP. And what about this point E? This point, this is the equilibrium point. This is the point where environmental degradation meets cost of pollution control, and the point E shows the optimal balance between economic growth, environmental protection, etc. And this is the point where pollution is not too high and cost of cleaning is not unbearably high. It represents the sustainable balance. So imagine more GDP is equal to more factories, that is equal to more pollution, and more pollution is equal to more cleaning cost. And at some point the economy has to decide how much can we grow without damaging the environment too much and without spending too much on cleaning, and that ideal point is point E. Okay. Now material balance approach, this is flow diagram of material balance approach. This diagram explains how the economy and environment are linked through the flow of raw materials, goods and waste. So think of it like a circle of resources. Okay, so think of it like a circle of resources. When production happens, people consume more waste will be there, and that waste will go back to the nature. So in here we can see in the left side, we can see the natural environment. The natural environment supplies raw materials like minerals, water, energy and timber. These raw materials enter the economy. And here we can see the producers. Okay, these producers take raw materials, labor and capital. This is not shown but it is implied. Okay, and they produce goods. But during production, these generate residuals or waste, that is RP. RP is the residuals or waste. For example, factory smoke, chemical waste or solid garbage. And this waste go in two directions. One part is discharged to the environment, that is RPD. Okay. And the other part is recycled back to the production, that is RPR. And consumers take the goods from the producers. Here is the consumers. They use these goods and create waste or residuals, that is RC. For example, households, garbage, sewage, plastic or food waste. And this waste also go in two ways. Part is discharged to the environment, and that is RCD, and the other part is recycled, that is RCR. And all discharged waste were from producers and consumers, that is RPD plus RCD goes back into the nature as pollution, as air pollution, water pollution and soil pollution. And some waste is not thrown away, it is recycled. That is RPR is recycled by the producers and RCR is recycled by the consumers. And recycling reduces pressure on the environment. So what is the core meaning here? What comes in must go out. So this flow diagram is based on the law of conservation of matter and energy. All inputs, that is raw materials, eventually become outputs, that is waste. So more production is equal to more waste. More consumption is also equal to more waste. Waste must go somewhere, mostly back to the nature. This is why economic growth must consider environmental protection. So hope you understand that the material balance model show that economy takes resources from the nature, converts them into goods, consumption and production generate waste, waste returns to the nature, some waste can be recycled, and total input is equal to total output, that is material cannot disappear. This environment and economy are interdependent. Okay, let's look at this thing. Think of economy as a big machine. I am explaining the same thing in a more detailed way. Okay, so think of the economy as a big machine. Whatever goes inside the machine must come outside. Nothing disappears magically. And this idea comes from the first law of thermodynamics. Matter and energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So in economics, especially environmental economics, we apply the same logic. What is that? How it works in the real world. First one. Okay, so how it works in the real world? First, input from the nature. We take things from the environment such as raw materials like wood, minerals, then water, etc. and also energy like coal, oil, sunlight and so on. These enters the economic system, factories and then household. And inside the economy, firms use input to make goods, households consume the good, and whatever enter the system must come out in some form. So some part come as useful goods and the rest come out as waste. Nothing stays inside forever. Waste go back to the environment as industrial waste, household waste and pollution. Some waste may be recycled, reused, and but all matters eventually returns to the nature in some form. And why is it important? This approach helps us understand why pollution happens, why resources use must be controlled, how economy and environment are physically linked, and so on. It shows that economic activities cannot be separated from the environment. Okay, and look at this equation. This equation basically tells us what we take from the nature is equal to what we return to the nature, because nothing disappears. This is based on the law of conservation of matter and energy. Okay, so material and energy inflow from natural world, that is M. This is what we take from the environment, that is raw materials, is then energy resources, water, minerals, forest, etc. All these together we are taken as M, that is input. Then economic activities, that is G. This is what happens, this is what humans produce and consume, like goods, consumption by household, production by firms, etc. So G is the useful output of the economy. Then residuals, that is RCD plus RDC. So residuals is waste produced during production and consumption, like smoke, sewage, plastic, etc. Not all waste go back into the nature. Some waste is collected and recycled, like through recycling paper, recycling plastic, reusing metal, composting food waste, and so on. And recycling reduces the waste that returns to the nature. So the final equation is always M is equal to G plus RP plus RP plus RC minus RR. But in our text it is breaking into two parts, that is material and energy inflow M is equal to economic activities, that is G, plus residual, that is RP plus RC minus recycled waste, that is RR. Whatever is left after recycling becomes final residual discharge, that is RP plus RC minus RR. This go back into the natural world as pollution. Okay. Now environmental goods. Okay. Environmental goods are useful things provided by the nature that improve our life, health and happiness. They are usually non-market goods, meaning you don't buy them in shop, they don't have a price tag, but they are extremely valuable. And what are the examples of environmental goods? Clean air that helps us breathe and stay healthy. Then clean water, essential for drinking, cooking, agriculture and industry. Then landscapes, that is beautiful natural scenery. Green transport infrastructure, footpath, cycle tracks, greenways, all these support eco-friendly movement. Then public and urban parks, they are spaces for recreation, exercise and community activities. Then rivers, lakes and beaches that provide water, biodiversity and recreation. And finally forest and mountain, this give us timber, oxygen, wildlife habitat and climate regulation. And why are these environmental goods important? Environmental goods influence first economy, that is clean water and air helps industries function properly. Healthy workers are more productive and tourism grows with beautiful natural spaces. Second one, human well-being, that is parks and clean air improve mental and physical health. Access to green spaces reduce stress. Then third one, other species. Wildlife depends on forest, river and oceans. Destroying habitats threatens our biodiversity. The last one, environment itself. Pollution damages the system that support life. Overuse of natural goods leads to environment degradation. Therefore, environmental goods are non-market natural resources like clean air, water, forest and parks that improve human well-being and ecological health. Okay. Now, environmental quality. Environmental quality refers to how healthy, clean and safe the environment is for humans, plants, animals and all living organisms. It tells us how clean the air is, how safe and pure the water is, how healthy the soil is and how well ecosystems are functioning. In short, it measures how good the environment is compared to what living beings needed. So, Remember that environmental quality is all about the condition of the environment. It includes all the physical, chemical and biological characteristics that affects living organisms. For example, air quality index, water purity level, noise level, biodiversity health and so on. And also remember, environmental quality is continuously declining. And the main reason is capitalistic mode of functioning. Industries overuse natural resources and that leads to excess pollution, overconsumption, waste generation and so on. And this leads to poor air, unsafe water, loss of forest and climate issues. And also remember that environment is a pure public good. A pure public good has two important features. What are they? Non-rivalry and non-exclusivity. Non-rivalry, that is one person's use does not reduce its availability for other. For example, one person breathing air doesn't stop other from breathing it. And what is called non-excludable? No one can be prevented from using it. For example, you cannot stop someone from enjoying clean air or sunlight. Okay, then remember, a pure public good is one for which consumption is non-rival and from which it is impossible to exclude a consumer. And remember that pure public goods create a free rider problem. Do you know what is meant by that? Because people cannot be excluded. Therefore, many takes the benefits without contributing to protection. For example, everyone uses clean air, but very few people take actions to reduce pollution. And as a result, resources get depleted. Then, national income. It ignores environmental contribution. In the current system, GDP counts factories, production and income, but does not count the contribution of nature. For example, forests purify air, but they are not counted. Rivers provide water. They are also not counted. Soil fertility, not counted. But when natural resources are depleted or polluted, even that loss is not subtracted from GDP. So GDP looks high, but the environment gets worse. Okay. So environmental quality is the measure of how suitable the environment is for supporting human and ecological life based on its physical, chemical and biological characteristics. Hope you understand. Now we are moving to a very new topic, that is externalities and environment. In environmental economics, one of the biggest reasons market fails is because of negative externality created during production and consumption. Do you know what is meant by externality? An externality is a side effect of economic activity, whether production or consumption, that affects a third party. That is someone who is not directly involved in the buying or selling of that good. So externality is a side effect of economic activity that affects a third party. And no one pays for this effect, okay? No compensation is given. It happens outside the market system. Because of this, externalities are also called spillover effects, okay? And let's take an example of negative externality. A factory produces textiles. Along with cloth, it releases polluted water into a river. People living nearby suffer health issues and they are not part of the factory's production or profit. They bear the cost without any compensation. This is an example of negative externality. Okay, tell me an example for positive externality. Okay, a person plant trees outside their house. Neighbors benefit from fresh air and shade, and the planter does not get paid for the benefit provided to others. This is an example for positive externality. And why externalities matter in environmental economics? Most environmental problems happen because the market ignores the social cost like pollution, health issues and environmental damage, and also it counts only private costs like cost of labor, raw materials and electricity. So producers produce more than socially optimal. Society suffers pollution, waste, deforestation and climate change, and this leads to market failure. Okay, so externalities are the unintended third-party effects of production or consumption that occurs outside the market mechanism and for which no compensation is paid. Meaning of externality. When we study environmental economics, one key idea we learn is externality. And what are externalities? Externalities are the external effects or spillover effects of an economic activity like production or consumption that affects other people who are not directly involved in that activity. In simple words, when your action affects someone else and neither you nor they are paid or compensated for it, that effect is called externality. Why do externalities happen? Externalities arise because economic units are interdependent. That means what one producer does can affect other producer or the public. What one consumer does can affect other consumer or society. This interconnected nature of the economy causes spillover benefits or cost. And we have already told about examples of negative and positive externality. Okay, I'll tell you one more example. Suppose a factory release smoke into the air. Nearby residents suffer breathing problems. They are third parties and they are affected without compensation. This is an example for negative externality. Now, a person maintains a beautiful garden, neighbors enjoy fresh air and a nice view. They benefit even though they didn't pay for it, and this is an example for positive externality. Therefore, externalities refers to the spillover effects of production or consumption that affect third parties due to the interdependence of economic units without any compensation. Okay. So positive externality means when a person's consumption of good gives benefit to others who do not pay for it. And negative externality means when a person's consumption causes harm or cost to others who are not involved. Okay. Now, what is called positive production externality? Do you know what is called mean by positive production externality? Okay, when a firm's production activity creates benefit for other producers or society without payment, this is called positive production externality. For example, beehives in orchards. Bees make honey and benefits the beekeeper. Bee pollinate apple trees and it increases apple production. Both parties benefit without paying for each other. This is called reciprocal untraded interdependency. Okay, reciprocal untraded interdependency. And what about training workers? For example, a company train workers and it bears the training cost. Workers leave and join another company and the second company gets the skilled workers free of cost. Okay, that's it. That is positive production externality. And what is called by negative production externality? Do you know what is meant by negative production externality? When a firm's production creates harm, waste or pollution affecting others who are not compensated. For example, a factory emits smoke, chemicals or effluents into air and water. Nearby rivers become polluted and unsafe and communities suffer health problems and water contamination. And the community bears the external cost and not the factories. Okay, so that is about negative production externality. Now let's look at positive consumption externality and negative consumption externality. Positive consumption externality means when a person's consumption of a good gives benefit to others who do not pay for it. For example, in a locality, some residents hire a private security agency to patrol their area. Even the other residents who do not pay for the service enjoy improved safety. They get benefit free of cost. And what is called by negative consumption externality? When a person's consumption causes harm or cost to others who are not involved. For example, a person smoking a cigarette may get personal satisfaction, but non-smokers nearby are forced to inhale smoke, leading to discomfort and health issues. And this is a passive smoking, a class A negative externality. Okay. So classification of externality, there is consumption and production externality. In both that we have positive and negative externalities. Positive externality we have private security, public safety, and negative example loudspeaker noise pollution. And positive production externality example beehive pollination, and negative production externality example factory emission. So let's stop it for today. I hope you understand. Thanks for watching. For more related contents, do like, share and subscribe.